Remember Blockbuster Video's slogan, Be Kind, Rewind? Well, in 2018, there's a brand new slogan, Be Kind, Listen to Retro Wrestling Rewind. We wanted to know, what would happen if you started a talk show with two passionate professional wrestling fans, one from the home of Zack Ryder, the Long Island IZ, and one from the home of Bad Street USA in Atlanta, Georgia? Well, here goes nothing. The very first edition of Retro Wrestling Rewind begins now.
World Wrestling Federation Champion, Sergeant Slaughter versus the Immortal Hulk Hogan. Face to face. It's WrestleMania.
Welcome in to the very first edition of Retro Wrestling Rewind. As you heard in the introduction, this week we are talking WrestleMania 7. I kind of feel like I'm in a different territory. I got a new tag team partner on this podcast, Alex G from Long Island. I am, of course, David Fine. Alex, man, I am hot tagging you in. I kind of feel like I'm cheating on my other tag team partner, but that happens in professional wrestling. Back in the day, a wrestler would go to another territory and have a new tag team partner. So welcome into the Beyond the Ropes radio network and to Retro Wrestling Rewind.
Yeah, I feel like Stan Lane, by the way, instead of Dennis Connery.
Oh, well,
you're Bobby Eaton, of course. How you guys doing this evening?
I am doing great. As the introduction said, we're talking about WrestleMania 7. 14 matches, and that didn't even include the dark match, which, of course, no one saw on television or on the pay-per-view. We have a couple of things. There's one thing that we did not see on the WWE Network edition of, or version of WrestleMania 7. We'll get into that, but kind of want to start off the state of wrestling back in 1991. What was your take on the state of professional wrestling circa 1991, 27 years ago?
Well, 1991 is an interesting year overall. The state of the business at that point, business was down. So we saw a drop off in live attendance gates and pay-per-view buy rates in 1990. Apparently, the Ultimate Warrior's title one was not a success. The same goes for WCW, which is in the midst of the Jim Herd era, which most people would know is stunk. Essentially,
it really
some
stunk.
good parts about the Jim Herd era, but we'll get to those on a different show. But in the state of the WWF at the time, again, business is down. I get the feeling that they're trying to do anything and everything. You know, they're trying to throw everything against the wall, see what sticks. It seems like the booking and the storylines seems to be a little bit darker, a little bit more violent. This particular year, which is a stark contrast from 1990 and 1992. So we start out the year with the Ultimate Warrior dropping the WWF Championship to Sergeant Slaughter at Royal Rumble 91. Hulk Hogan wins the Royal Rumble that year. Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig recently won the Intercontinental Championship from the Texas Tornado right before Survivor Series of 1990. And your tag team champions, still the Hart Foundation. So Bret the Hitman Hart and the recently deceased Jim the Anvil Neidhart are still the tag team champions. Now, the one thing that is interesting about this time frame, it seems to be, again, since business is down, they're changing their minds quite a bit. So if you watch the TVs at the end of 1990 and the first part of 1991, you kind of get a feel of what they were going for and the changes that were made. Now, people may not remember, because I know a lot of people didn't see it until it was on the one of the WWE released DVDs, that the Rockers actually defeated the Hart Foundation to win the World Tag Team Championship in a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was supposed to air on Saturday night's main events, but the top rope broke. So I get the feeling that they were going to split up the Hart Foundation way before WrestleMania 7, which most likely would have led to a Bret Hart Mr. Perfect match at WrestleMania instead of SummerSlam. That being said, with the Rockers as the World Tag Team Champions, they probably would have dropped the belts to the Nasty Boys at WrestleMania. So again, we see some changing in the cards already for this show. Obviously, they did the stuff with Slaughter. Now, Slaughter came in not as the Iraqi sympathizer at first. That took a couple of months. He came in stating that, America's gone soft, and he's upset that America kind of welcomed in Nikolai Volkov after his babyface turn. And he's basically feuding with Jim Duggan. So I'm assuming, based on the television, that it was going to be Slaughter and Duggan at WrestleMania. Again, if you look at the end of 1990. And then in addition to that, because they weren't sure about, what they were going to do with Hogan and Warrior, which was the proposed main event for WrestleMania 7, a rematch coming off of WrestleMania 6, that looked like it was changed initially to a match featuring Hulk Hogan versus Sheik Tugboat. Again, the Tugboat was going to be the Iraqi sympathizer, but they changed their mind on that and went with Slaughter instead. So again, the card is in flux, lots of things changing. Again, we have Rick Rude, who left the WWF after SummerSlam 90. He was feuding with Big Boss Man, talking all kind of junk about Big Boss Man's mom. And Big Boss Man was going to go through the entire Heenan family and then finally get into Rick Rude. But Rick Rude had left, so they kind of transferred the heat instead to Bobby and the rest of the family, and then he finally gets his revenge on Bobby Heenan by going after Mr. Perfect, which is on their show. So again, it's very fluid. It's a lot of stuff to keep up with, and it seems like for the first time in a long time that the TV is rapidly changing almost from week to week.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, we're talking about WWF. 4 or 3 days prior, according to my show notes, WCW had a New Japan Super Show.
They did.
And they had 64,500 in attendance compared to WWF's, I guess, their main show of the year, WrestleMania. They had 16,158.
Yes.
And as we know, they were not supposed to have it at the LA Memorial Sports Arena. They were supposed to have it at the Coliseum. Kind of tell everybody did they have a reasoning why they decided to move it from a bigger venue to that smaller venue?
Well, there's their particular narrative, which I don't necessarily believe all that much. But let's go back to the beginning. They were promoting WrestleMania 7, 100,000 people at the LA Coliseum since WrestleMania 6. There was actually an advert for that in WrestleMania 6, and you've seen the same advert in SummerSlam 90. Mm-hmm. Although a couple of months before the event, again, we're right into the mix of the Iraq War. I believe it started 3 days before either this show or Royal Rumble 91. So we're in the midst of a conflict here, and there were legitimate security concerns about having, a large group of people in an arena like that. They had some issues over at the Super Bowl of that year. And I get a feeling that, local LAPD, local security went back to the WWF saying, hey, listen, we have some security concerns. Now, what the WWE claims is that they were getting bomb threats and they couldn't ensure people's safety. And so they chose to move it across the street. Okay. I don't believe that. I believe they were concerns. I don't think they moved it because of those security concerns. I think they moved the venue because tickets were so slow. Again, you've been promoting the show for a year and you only have 10,000 tickets, 14,000 tickets sold up to this point. So again, taking it from an arena that would hold 100,000 people down to an arena that only holds 16.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think you're doing that because of bomb threats. I don't think you're taking money out of your pocket like that. And, to be completely honest, and people in the mass said that this show was not sold out. It was not sold out.
Even though, of course, I mean, I think that's with any sports or anything in life. They're going to oversell it, and especially in wrestling, it's it's Vince McMahon. He's going to say it's.
I don't begrudge him for the 93,000, the 100,000 at the WrestleMania in Dallas. I don't begrudge him for doing that because everyone does that. But again, it's when you start arguing with the actual real numbers that get reported is where you get into some issues there.
Yeah, and no one really wants to kind of argue with Vince McMahon. If not, they'll probably get bought out. But let's kind of go into the card. I rewatched it the other day. It was 14 matches. It's just, and then that didn't even include the dark match, which thank God they didn't include that on the network. They probably would have. Let's start out with the Rockers, Marty Jannetty and the legend himself, Shawn Michaels. They defeated the Barbarian and Haku with the late great Bobby the Brain Heenan, who I don't know if you would agree with me, but if he had a podcast whenever when he was still alive and he was able to to talk, he would have had some great stories. I mean,
it would have been fantastic.
He would have been number one all over the world. But what was your take on that first match, the Rockers versus the Barbarian and Haku?
Now, to me, this is a tale of two teams who have nothing to do. They're on first, which is great. The Rockers were on first the year before. The Barbarian and Haku, not really teaming a whole lot before this. Barbarian was in a match with Big Boss Man at the Royal Rumble. Haku was in the Rumble. Again, not a whole lot of things for these guys to do. Shawn Michaels is coming back from that knee injury. He just recently came back a few months prior to this. And you can tell right here, this is when the Rockers, as a team, are starting to decline. But you can see Shawn Michaels for the really first time that his star is starting to rise.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of like I compare him to the Rockers to the Rock and Roll Express. Kind of Shawn Michaels was the Ricky Morton, and Marty Jannetty was the Robert Gibson. I mean, they were both great wrestlers, but they kind of put the spotlight on Shawn, and I mean, I think he's turned out. He's turned out pretty good. I mean, Marty Jannetty's still doing some independent shows, but he hasn't had the success as Shawn Michaels. But I mean,
this is probably Shawn Michaels at his biggest, by the way, in terms of his overall physique and appearance, by the way. So he comes back from that knee injury, and he's big.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely gotten a little bigger. But the next match, and I didn't even know this bit of knowledge that. The Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, he defeated Dino Bravo with the man who changed his outfit about 3 or 4 times in the entire show because he's with a different guy. He's a different guy every time. And I heard a story that, of course, we're headed in this week when the show drops. We're going into All In weekend. And Conrad Thompson said that he was talking and had Jimmy Hart on a panel. He asked him a question, and everything that he talked about had to do with his tiki bar and his Hall of Fame in Florida. That man is I wouldn't say he's a Hulk Hogan mark, but he loves Hulk Hogan. He will always be loyal to that man. But the nugget that you threw at me, and I was just like, I told my buddy at work, I said, dude, I did not know this, that Kerry Von Erich had an accident, a motorcycle accident many years before 1991 and had a fake foot. But you were saying that you were surprised that the WWF at the time didn't take advantage of saying, hey, look what because now they do, the Special Olympics and all the other stuff.
Yeah, in terms of being a hero with 2 kids that have disabilities.
Yeah.
This would have been huge for them. This would have been huge for the company. Now, there was always rumors out there that Fritz didn't want that to be known, and it was a big deal, and they really did a really, really good job of keeping this quiet. But come on, guys, he could have been a hero to the masses here instead of being, Intercontinental Champion. Now at this point, lower mid-card babyface. To be completely honest, I don't know how he even lost the Royal Rumble because you need 2 feet to be eliminated from the Royal Rumble, hit the floor, and I don't know. He should have won every Royal Rumble and every Battle Royal. So.
And he technically only has 1 foot. So, I mean, but not to put, to make light of that. But he did defeat Dino Bravo. I mean, what are your thoughts on Dino Bravo? I mean, I was never a big fan of his, but. What were your thoughts?
If you watch Dino in his early days, you're talking about late 70s, early 80s in Montreal. Great worker. This is before he ballooned up. And I think the steroids with him, especially, really limited him in terms of his ability in the ring, his work rate overall. He could have been a bigger star. He was just way too, he wasn't even jacked. He just looked swollen.
Yeah.
and his mobility was deeply hampered. He's coming off that big run with him and Earthquake against Hogan. And at this point, we're not too far away from his death. I mean, he was murdered by the Canadian mafia, gangland style, for selling bootleg cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I've noticed that a lot of wrestlers, seem to meet their untimely death. They never die of just natural causes. It's either suicide or someone kills them. But this match, praise the Lord, up above, that only lasted 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 11 seconds. That was 3 minutes too long, in my opinion. And I'm surprised they didn't put this match on, at the beginning, because the Rockers, Barbarian, Haku, I mean, you could kind of throw that up in the air. But the next match was the great tag team with the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith, Dynamite Kid. Oh, no, sorry, the British Bulldog. Sorry, I don't know why I thought that. British Bulldog faced the Warlord with his manager. I mean, he is probably the funniest. I really liked his gimmick.
Slick.
Versus, with Slick and what were your
Slick,
thoughts on,
by the way,
on this?
tidbit on Slick. You know that Slick is a second-generation wrestler or / manager. His father was the great Rufus R. Jones.
I did not know that. But what were you thinking about this match? I mean, it went 8 minutes and 15 seconds.
I was pleasantly surprised. On paper, this looks like to be really horrible on paper. But they had a really good match. I mean, Bulldog is at his biggest once again, but he's really working hard here. The Warlord's working hard here. They had a nice little match. I like the old school angle of, you got to get out of the full Nelson challenge. We've seen that with the Cobra Clutch. We've seen that with other full Nelsons. Would it be Chris Masters later on? But this was a nice little match. Really good job by both these guys. They would have another match not too long after this. That was a stinker though. But this particular match, they really brought it on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It was definitely a good match.
Fast paced for two big guys like that.
Yeah, so. I mean, and of course, Davey Boy Smith has a son, Davey Boy Smith Jr., who's currently wrestling over in Japan, and he's about as big as his father. So he's an up and coming young superstar. The next match, I mean, I'm a fan of one of the tag teams. It's the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs, Jerry Sags, with Jimmy Hart in a different gimmick with a helmet on. They took on the Hart Foundation of Bret Hitman Hart and, of course, Jim Neidhart Neidhart for the tag team titles. As we come to find out, this is the last time that they tag up because they lose the tag team titles. And you think this is kind of the culmination? Vince said, hey, Bret may make a better singles wrestler than a tag team wrestler, or do you think...
Well, they were trying to push Bret singles since '88. And they would start his push, and then they would cut it short. Like, even at WrestleMania 4, if you remember WrestleMania 4, him and Bad News Brown were the last two guys in the Battle Royal, and then Bret had a little mini feud with Bad News, but they never really kind of gave him a run as a single.
Yeah.
But they were trying to push him for a while. And at this point, I think when they won the titles in 1990, I think they were running out of tag teams and wanted to put the tag team championship on a credible team at that point. So the funny thing about the Nasty Boys, you bring them up, the Nasty Boys recently debuted like around the time of Royal Rumble, and they're already the tag team champions. They won a tag team battle royal to get their shot, lastly eliminating the Legion of Doom with interference from Power and Glory. But the Nasty Boys, came in basically right away and won the tag team championship.
I mean, do you think it's because they were just Vince and everybody in the booking committee was
Hulk Hogan's friends?
Oh yeah, I mean I mean there may be a lot of negatives to Hulk Hogan, but if you know Hulk Hogan, it also helps you. It's one of those things. But I mean, what would you think of the Nasty Boys? I mean, they weren't the definition of they weren't in shape. Well, I mean, they weren't a physical specimen as like a.
I don't like the Nasty Boys in WWF. Mm-hmm. I do like the Nasty Boys in WCW. They had a couple of crazy matches with Kevin Sullivan, Cactus Jack that are amazing. I'm actually shocked and awed that they never spent any time in ECW. Because imagine the Nasty Boys in ECW fighting like the Dudleys or the Gangsters. That would have been amazing.
Oh God! If they had faced the Gangsters, I have a buddy who was a wrestler down here in Georgia, and he wrestled New Jack one time. He said that man is stiff as hell. But I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, some of those some of those
I mean,
matches.
the Nasties are known for throwing potatoes too. So that would have been a barn burner.
Oh, that would have been definitely a great match to to kind of to be.
Now, the Nasty Boys are probably the definition of a transitional champions. Like, obviously, they're winning the belts here, and they're going to drop them to the Legion of Doom at SummerSlam. So, they had a decent run, but after that loss to LOD at SummerSlam, they're way down the card.
Yeah.
Like, they're doing, like, 6-man matches and 8-man matches from there on out. Like, they're not in anything important after this.
Yeah, I mean, what were you think their thinking was to give them the
There was other teams. It was them or the Orient Express as heel teams.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going back to Demolition because you're going to split them apart after this pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So it's either them. I'm really surprised they didn't go with Power and Glory.
Yeah.
Because they had a hell of a 1990. And they were really, really over. And their finisher was fantastic. The Powerplex. That was an awesome maneuver. But I think overall, Nasty's established team. They just came in from WCW. They gave him a shot. Plus, they're Hogan's friends.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you're a Hogan, I guess I wouldn't call him a stooge, but a Hogan friend, you definitely are going to
in a circle. It's the way it is.
I mean, it is professional wrestling. I mean, it is what it is. The next match, and I've heard on other podcasts, I think it was actually on Jericho's podcast, that Jake Roberts, he was defeated Rick Martel in a blindfold match, which wasn't really a blindfold. It was like a sack.
It's a hood.
It was a hood. And
any other promotion, they would have called this the Prince of Darkness match, by the way.
And according to Jake, you could see right through it. So it wasn't that they couldn't actually see it. What do you think about this match? It was kind of gimmicky. I mean, walking around acting like,
This match is so much fun. Again, it may not translate on television as well, as good as you would like. But if you're in that live crowd, and you get to cheer and you get to tell Jake where Rick Martel is, that's a really fun match. But what makes this match is the angle leading up to it. Again, this is a 6-month angle. It started when Rick Martel blinded Jake Roberts on the set of the Blood of Love show. It culminated that week after week we get updates from Jake at the eye doctor, and apparently if you get arrogant sprayed in your eye, you lose your pupils because his eye was just white, which is insane. Clearly contact lenses. He makes his return at the Survivor Series, and from the Survivor Series they go to Royal Rumble. For the Royal Rumble they come here to WrestleMania 7. So again, that's a 6-month feud.
Yeah, I mean I've met Jake.
Jake Roberts has he wears the craziest sweaters, like in his street clothes. Like he's the type of guy who wears like these almost like bad Christmas sweaters with sweatpants and cowboy boots. Then he tucks his sweatpants into the cowboy boots, which is strange to me, but awesome in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is about Jake Roberts and his snake gimmick is like, I mean, I've heard that he was not a big fan of snakes.
No.
But they wanted to put some gimmick. Well, according to some people and, Bruce Pritchard, I've heard stories that there are rumors and innuendo that they had like, a sheet of gimmicks that they said, hey, we got to put this gimmick on.
The good old box of gimmicks?
The old box of gimmicks. And, he got the Jake the Snake Roberts gimmick, and I mean he's made success on that. He's definitely put that over. But it's he's from Stone Mountain, Georgia, so of course that got over with me. I mean, were you a big Jake Roberts fan? I mean, was it one of those things that you believe that he was as a badass like he seemed to be on TV?
I love Jake Roberts to death. To me, there was a point in time in the late 80s that he was clearly the number 2 babyface in the company. Like, he was getting that strong reaction. Great worker. The finisher, DDT. Oh, my God. You hit the DDT, it's over.
Yep.
Like, how many times as a youth did I DDT people at recess? I did that all the time. So, big Jake Roberts fan overall. And I think his promos were so memorable and just amazing overall. Even the promo he did for this show was off the charts.
It's one of those things that as a ring announcer and a person that interviewed a lot of people, if you're a great wrestler in the ring and you're great on the mic, it's just like I'm just wondering. We've known that Jake have had problems and he's kind of done a 360 on his life, but if that hadn't been, I mean, he could have Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, like as a kid, did you see Jake the Snake Roberts as maybe a world champion?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was on my short list of guys. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 5 years old, I did like this collage thing for school, and it was about wrestling. And I had wrestling cards, which I cut up, and then I cut belts out of the magazines, and I would put like my wish list of guys who would win championship. Number 1 was Bret Hart, and I put the little card up with the belt on it, and I taped it all together. Jake Roberts was definitely like 3 on that. On top, the only person over him was Roddy Piper that I had on my personal list of guys I wanted to win the world championship. So.
Yeah, I mean, back in my youth, since I did grow up in Crockett country, I didn't watch a lot of WWF at the time. I mean, I was more of a Saturday night Tony Schiavone, David Crockett, Saturday night. I was a big Ric Flair mark. I mean, it's like I met Dusty Rhodes, one time back when I was working for World Championship Wrestling, and as you know, because you met him before, that he is. I mean, there's some guys in wrestling that are just assholes, and I'll just put that out there bluntly. But then there's guys who may play one of those on TV, but are totally sweethearts. And Dusty Rhodes never really played a heel, but he was one of the nicest guys. And I mean, he was. I was a big Dusty mark, but. We will kind of get into Dusty being the WWFE, with his polka dots, I'm sure coming up sometime down the road. But the next match, it was the beginning of a streak. The Undertaker, with Paul Bearer, defeated Jimmy Superfly Snuka in a whopping 4 minutes and 20 seconds to start his WrestleMania streak. Which
there's 2 streaks here because Jimmy Snuka has the anti-streak. He never wins at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and it was funny. It was funny. Yeah, back in 1981, WrestleMania 7, The Undertaker started his streak, and I was at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans when his streak ended against Brock Lesnar, and that was in a time when I looked around at fans and I was shocked, and I had thought that maybe the referee messed up the finisher. I was like, "There's no way in hell."
There was a lot of different we were talking about this on the show. We were talking about like, did Taker get hurt? Did Brock win the business for himself?
Yeah,
was an audible?
I mean, I was like, there is no. I mean, unless they changed that during the middle of the match, I was like, I did not see Brock Lesnar winning against the Undertaker. At least not pinning him. Maybe a count out, maybe a disqualification or whatever. But I mean, because we all know that Brock Lesnar, he gets blown up just walking to the ring, and he beat the Undertaker, and I was shocked. But this is the event when the WrestleMania. This is his first WrestleMania because he had come in that same year at Survivor Series. No. Did he come in the Survivor Series 1990?
Came in Survivor Series, yeah. 1990.
1990. Yeah, and this was when he first started his streak of WrestleManias.
Yep.
What were you thinking about this? I mean, at the beginning of the Undertaker WrestleMania streak, did you see? I mean, of course, you couldn't predict back then. Did you see it going this long? Fast forward to 2018. I mean, did you see his WrestleMania streak?
There's a couple different things I want to hit on here. Number one, I was petrified of the Undertaker as a youth. I was legitimately scared of him, as was everyone in the building that night. If you look at they did a great job like capturing like the kids who were really scared of him.
Yeah,
those kids on camera did a fantastic job with that.
I'll have to tell you. I have to tell you in a second who I am scared of. You're scared of the Undertaker. I'll tell you who I am scared of, legitimately till today. But on with your story.
In addition, when you had the Undertaker come in, I knew who he was prior because I was watching WCW, so I knew the Undertaker was Mean Mark, but that didn't mean I wasn't scared of him. Mm-hmm. To me, the interesting part about the Undertaker is that there's no way that gimmick should have worked, but it did. Like, he's a zombie man.
Yeah.
1991 WWF. You'd think that it would last like 2 years, and they would ship him off. And I have a hot take or a frozen take, depending on how you think about these things. And I'll tell you this. If the Ultimate Warrior wasn't the Ultimate Warrior and wouldn't get fired / leave all the time, that the Undertaker only lasted 3 years. And I'll tell you why. I think the Ultimate Warrior would have been positioned in that number 2, number 3 babyface spot, and he would have fought all the creatures and the monsters and your Kamalas and your Giant Gonzaleses and your Papa Shangos and your Berserkers. He would have been that guy. But since Warrior was gone, and you had this, great wrestler in the Undertaker filled that role for them. And I'm telling you, if the Warrior would have stayed through the entire time, Undertaker would probably lasted 3 years and he would have been finished.
Yeah, I wasn't a big Ultimate Warrior fan.
No one was a big Ultimate Warrior fan. That's why he didn't draw in 1990.
I think the only person that was a real fan of Ultimate Warrior was the Ultimate Warrior. And it was another thing about going to WrestleMania 30. That was, right before his passing, and he was in the Hall of Fame. That year, and it was kind of a sad situation after that. But speaking of that, it was a retirement match. In match number 7 on the card, the Ultimate Warrior defeated Randy Macho Man Savage with Miss Elizabeth coming in from the crowd.
Yes.
Coming in from the crowd after sensational Queen Sherry, was slapping Macho Man or Macho King at the time because he had just won he'd run the King of the Ring. What was your take on this match? I mean, it was one of those things that when the Ultimate Warrior's music hit, he didn't come out. And he finally came out. And I think sometimes the commentary kind of puts over the matches, and with the Brain as on commentary, he just puts over everything, and it just makes it. They kept on showing Miss Elizabeth in the crowd with her worried concern. And, it was 1991. Of course, the internet was just in infancy if they even had it. Because I remember back in college in 1995, I had dial-up. So I don't think back in 1991 they had it. So people just didn't know maybe if she was going to be there, if she was going to be in the crowd. Now you would, of course, know that. But what was your take on Elizabeth being in the crowd? And then,
There's a couple of things. I don't think they teased her on television. At least they didn't make any reference to it on any of the TVs that I watched in the first quarter of 1991. Now, she was at the WrestleMania the year before, but they had teased her. So that was a big surprise. Seeing her in the crowd was a huge surprise, huge shock. She's been gone for a year. Well, we haven't seen her since WrestleMania 6.
Yeah.
The match, watching this match back, makes me very sad, actually, because you can tell that Randy Savage put this match together.
Yeah.
From start to finish. And I think the wrestling world lost such a big influence, because imagine if he's putting together matches backstage. Imagine if he was an agent or a writer right now. How amazing some of these matches would have been.
Yeah,
because he was so meticulous. He would write spot 1, spot 2. And a lot of guys couldn't do that back in the day. He did it. And did it fantastic. And with a guy like Warrior, giving Warrior essentially a script was probably the best thing. This is Warrior's best match. I know a lot of people will say the SummerSlam match in '92. No, this one is his best match ever. Period.
Yeah, it was like you said. I think it was his best match. And the kind of sad thing that you look back at it 27 years ago, that all 4 of these people are no longer with us.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people on this card that are not with us, and it's just
this one's a big one for that.
Yeah, it's definitely for that. But we'll kind of move on, and it's kind of funny how in wrestling a retirement never means retirement. Yeah. We all know that he comes back, he proposes, they get married, and even though it's a kayfabe because they've already been married, it's just
Actually, they get married on TV and then divorce like 3 months later.
Yeah, you should never marry anybody that to either work with or you were in wrestling with, but it never ends well. And the next match we had Demolition. I was a big Demolition fan.
You like them over the Road Warriors?
Yeah, no, actually,
they're better workers than the Road Warriors.
Yeah, but the Road Warriors, they scared me. They weren't the ones that that would scare me. But I think they were over more Demolition. They were just better workers. The Road Warriors had the better look, I think, than Demolition.
We'll talk about the Road Warriors look when we get to that match, because I got an opinion on that.
Well, and then they faced Tenryu and Kitao.
Yeah, Koji Kitao.
Yes,
and Grandmaster Sumo. This man once shot on an earthquake in a match in Japan. So, guys, if you want to see this match, go on YouTube. Type in Koji Kitao versus Earthquake, and it devolves into a shoot fight real quick. We have Tenryu, again, former All Japan stalwart. He just opened up his new promotion, And that's why they're on this show, because they're bringing the WWF to Japan. So again, that's the reason why they're on this show. The thing that sticks out in my mind about this match is Tenryu hitting a power bomb, like kind of out of nowhere. That was pretty neat. I mean, again, this is Demolition of Crush and Smash. Again, Axe was out after Survivor Series of 1990. They're back with Fuji. Seems weird. The whole thing with Demolition at this time period. Again, obviously they're gonna kill the team and they're gonna repackage both these guys. Essentially, by the time we get to the next pay-per-view.
Yeah,
it's a squash.
I mean, the funny thing about this wasn't even the match. It was they had they had celebrity guests. They had Alex Trebek as a ring announcer. They had Regis Philbin, Marla Maples. They had Regis in the back interviewing them, and of course they don't speak English, kind of like a Shinsuke Nakamura. And he goes, Toyota. Suzuki, and they go, Suzuki, Toyota. I'm like, oh my God, seriously? But
it would have been funny if like Regis would have left and they started speaking English right after that.
Yeah, I mean that would.
I'm pretty sure Tenryu knows how to speak English.
Well, probably. And the next match is, I thought it was a great match. It was for the Intercontinental title. Mr. Perfect, the champion, with the one and only great Bobby the Brain Heenan, taking on Cobb County, Georgia, which is just north of where I live. The Big Boss Man. I mean, this match, it went 10 minutes and 46 seconds. And for a big guy like the Boss Man, that's like a lifetime. I mean, in my opinion, I think. What were your thoughts on this match?
Big Boss Man is on my list of top 5 just natural workers. Like, people forget how young he is here. He's extremely young. Again, he went from being a Crockett job guy to being Jim Cornette's bodyguard to now the Big Boss Man. So his career rapidly went up. Again, he went from being Jim Cornette's bodyguard to being in main events with Dusty Rhodes to being in main events with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how great the Big Boss Man is. I don't think anyone realized. I think he's super underrated.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely. Its dichotomy went from NWA as, like you said, Jim Cornette's bodyguard, wrestling, Ron Garvin in Starrcade, to wrestling Hulk Hogan, to being in major feuds, to being, he was a really good wrestler. And once again, two more.
His weight would fluctuate. I think some people prefer extra chubby Boss Man. I like my more lean Boss Man because he could do more stuff.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much like almost at his leanest here, and you can tell because he is working hard. Those guys are moving. And one thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you saw this, was Mr. Perfect's interview that he did prior to this match.
I did not.
It's very strange to me. Every once in a while, Vince will get on this tangent about let's make things topical to show the people that we're alive, right? So when we get to those tangents, you can tell because they make references that some people may not get because, again, they're literally from that week. This is not one of those cases here. Again, he cut a promo that's very topical at the time. He makes a reference to the Rodney King incident during his promo.
Yeah, that's
everyone knows what the Rodney King incident was, and what happened there, and the implications and the riots and what have you. This is right when it happened. So look, to me that morning, like Vince looked in the newspaper, was like, "Oh, Kurt, talk about this." So Kurt cuts this promo about like how Big Boss Man's not going to get 56 free swipes on him, and Bobby Heenan's like, "There's not going to be some schmo in the bushes filming it. They're just going to beat up Boss Man." And again, this is coming off of Bobby's feud with Boss Man, talking about Boss Man's mother, and they did. And to me, that seems like such a kind of childish in a way. Like, oh, I'm talking about your mama.
Yeah,
but they really sold it and did it well.
I mean, Perfect was a great heel. And of course, Bobby Heenan made fun of the humanoids, and it just fit in with their gimmick and their shtick, and it pissed people off. And this is back in '91. I don't know if you could get away with, without people, big backlash on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I think half the stuff that they did back in 1991, they couldn't get away with now. I mean, they could still do it, but I think on Twitter, and there would be so much.
I mean, there's an opinion by me is that I think a lot of people don't realize or forget how strong like the Parent and Teachers Council was back in the day.
Yeah.
Like they got a lot of heat for the whole Iraq angle. Like they got a ton of heat for that. There were consistently attempts of getting thrown off of TV. Now, did they get any traction? Maybe today it would probably get a little bit more traction because you can encapsulate it more on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always attempts. I mean, don't forget about the attempts to, and they actually succeeded getting ECW thrown off the television and had issues with their pay-per-view companies. And we're talking about the mid-90s here. You know, obviously during the Attitude Era, to the point where Vince, you know, created Right to Center to mock these people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like there was always a backlash. There was always a negativity associated, especially when it comes to professional wrestling, even in its cartooniest form, which this is right here. I think 1992 would be a little bit more cartoony, but you don't get more cartoony than what we're watching right here. Almost as vanilla and not violent at this point. It'll get more violent as we get deeper into 91. But I think one of the things that you have to point out here, this is Bobby's last pay-per-view as a full-time manager. He's done after this.
Yeah, man, it's
Perfect goes with the coach, and Barbarian and Haku are essentially gone.
Yeah, I mean, they should have been gone a long time ago. But it's funny with wrestling fans; they don't forget that, or they forget that most of these, at least back in the day, that most of these wrestlers probably don't believe in whatever they're talking about. It's just a job and a shtick. But
let me ask you a question. I want to ask you a question real quick before we move on. Do you find it odd to me, or do you find it odd to yourself that everyone accepts professional wrestling as scripted, as entertainment, but the heels can't get heat that way anymore because there's people think the heels are really them? It's a really weird dichotomy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
where everyone knows, like, if you watch a movie and you have someone that's, say a racist or pro-apartheid, like Colonel De Beers was, right?
Yeah.
And that character couldn't really work today. But it should be able to work today because everyone knows it's scripted and everyone knows that you're just being a bad guy. You're not a bad guy in real life.
Yeah, I mean, but then there's I think there's some people who, believe like a Sami Callihan is actually, a jackass like he is on TV. But
these people love the kayfabe all the way
because
I don't begrudge them, but like, come on.
I mean, it's just I've seen worked with wrestlers that were heels on TV or heels in the ring, but they're the nicest people in the world. It's just like they're going to go with whatever. If they're a heel, they're going to go with whatever pisses the fans off the most. And the funny thing is, they'll still buy the merchandise. Yeah. They scream and boo them and they say, "Oh, your mother's an idiot," and blah blah blah. They'll still buy. They'll still
any heat right now. They're just afraid to get heat.
Yeah,
and that's why you have a bunch of heels that don't have heat, and a bunch of baby faces that we're not over.
Yeah, well, and then there's John Cena, but we won't go into that. I'm not a big John Cena fan, but he's still.
We'll do a whole show about John.
Every time I go to see a show and I hear that music, I just want to punch myself in the face. But that's neither here nor there. We'll do a whole John Cena show. But the next match number 10, yes, folks, there are 14 matches in WrestleMania 7. Earthquake with Jimmy Hart in another outfit. He defeated Greg the Hammer Valentine in a singles match in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. What were your thoughts on Earthquake versus the Hammer Valentine?
Again, they're just coming off that angle where Jimmy Hart and Greg Valentine had split. Earthquake is pretty much Jimmy Hart's enforcer here. Again, this is kind of low on the card for Earthquake. Again, he's coming off a main event with both Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And I think they made a mistake here by not turning him babyface at this point, because I believe in my heart of hearts at this point in 1991 that the Earthquake would have been a super over babyface. Like, I'm talking about like number 3 babyface in the company if they would have turned him. Because I see the reactions that he's getting. After a certain point, people weren't booing him anymore. And then by the time he gets in the team with Tugboat as the National Disasters, Typhoon actually, if you want to be a jerk about it, and they turn him babyface, Earthquake's getting a fantastic reaction in 93 and 94 as babyface. So I'm like, they probably should have turned him earlier. But again, this is essentially a squash match for Valentine. Valentine, again, he's not there too much longer. They were doing these strange things in '91. They were releasing guys, but they still were under contract, but they were able to work indie dates. Again, this is sort of the birth of indie wrestling, the late '80s and into the early '90s.
Yeah.
But Greg Valentine had one of those contracts, whether they can recall him and pull him off for shows if they needed him for something. But he was allowed to work indie dates because they weren't booking him.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of what they're doing nowadays. I mean, it was an okay match. I mean, the next match you were saying earlier, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal defeated Power and Glory, Hercules, and Paul Roma with once again the Dr. Style Slick. And I don't know if this is a typo. This is in 59 seconds.
That's correct.
I didn't put my stopwatch to it. 59.
You probably were watching. You blinked and you missed it.
What? Yeah. What was the point of this? I mean, it was a squash match. I mean, it was.
I want to say, to be completely honest, I think someone was hurt.
Okay.
I think. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean,
because Power and Glory is a team that you're pushing for the last 6 months. They're in this blood feud with the LOD. They cost LOD a shot at tag titles, not necessarily understanding why they would want to squash him out in 59 seconds. A couple of things about Power and Glory. I think a lot of people tend to forget this. But again, guys, there's a lot of shows out there that review pay-per-views and review shows. But if you don't watch the TV, you're going to be lost.
Yeah. And
you're going to miss little things. For example, Hercules and Paul Roma were a tag team before becoming Power and Glory. They were a babyface tag team for a couple of weeks. They came out to Hercules' music. So when Paul Roma and Hercules turns makes sense because the Rockers are in the ring. It makes more sense that Hercules would come out and get in the Rockers' face because he was Paul Roma's tag team partner. But you don't get that from watching pay-per-views because you're not going to see that. Yeah, that's actually on a random primetime. And I'm surprised how many people did not know that. They thought, Slick put them together and they had to turn and they're Power and Glory after that. And that's not the case at all. But Power and Glory is super underrated tag team. I would have gave them a run with the tag belts, probably over the Nasty Boys, to be completely honest. Fantastic. And again, I don't know why they're squashed out here. It's a little bit depressing. Now, in terms of the Legion of Doom, and their gear, a good friend of mine, David Bix's band, who's on the Between the Sheets podcast, I made this point and I agree with him. The moment that they took them out of the black shoulder pads and the all black gear, that's kind of the end of like your super menacing Road Warriors. Like after that, they seem kind of cartoony. Like the spikes seem fake, and they're red, and they have like the red boots, and they got like designs on their pants now, and to me, the Legion of Doom is not the Road Warriors. They're two different things.
Yeah.
And it took them almost a year to put the belts on the Legion of Doom. I wonder what the hell it took them so long.
Yeah, I mean,
they spent the second half of '90 feuding with Demolition, with his 3 members of Demolition, and the Ultimate Warrior was their tag team partner. So let's see where the Ultimate Warrior is at. He is the 6th man on a 6-man feud, not doing a whole lot, and then in 1990. But yeah, it took them a whole year to get the belts. And I think by the time they got the belts, just like what happened to Crockett too, by the time they got the belts, it was like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, because whenever they were the the Road Warriors, I mean, it was they were menacing, but it's like as the Legion of Doom, I'm like, yeah. I mean,
even the promos weren't as they were still good.
I mean,
but they weren't like as serious. And by the time they got the stupid puppet and all that other nonsense, they were done.
Don't make fun of Paul Ellering. But no, Paul Ellering.
I was talking about Rocco in the.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, in the NWA days, which we're going to cover on another show. I mean, the Road Warriors, they were great. They were great. They were better in the ring, but when they had their mouthpiece, kind of like when a tag team had Bobby Heenan or Jimmy Hart, they didn't need to talk. They had their mouthpiece, their manager to talk, and that's just I think nowadays
like
that's
talk and talk.
Yeah,
Animal not so much.
Yeah, not so much. But and of course, Road Warrior Animal has a podcast, and
He does.
He does, and I think everyone seems to have a podcast. If you have a microphone or the ability to talk, I think everyone has a pod. Some are good, some are well.
I'm waiting for the Virgil podcast personally.
God, if we, as bad as that is, it would probably be good. I mean, hey,
Live from the Olive Garden.
Oh, he'd probably charge you to listen to every episode.
You want to hear my Virgil story?
Uh-oh.
I have a Virgil story.
Breaking news. Here's a Virgil story.
So I'm at WrestleCon with my buddy, right? And I told him, like, whatever you do not make eye contact with Virgil. Just don't do it. He's like, all right, whatever, right? So we're getting our pictures and our autographs from random people. So Virgil comes up to him and was like, hey, man, you want a picture? So my friend's like, yeah, sure. So we take the picture. And then Virgil's like, $100, please. And my friend was like, no, I'm not giving you $100. I'm going to delete this picture right now. He's like, okay, $3. So my friend gave him $3.
Yeah,
that's the story of Virgil at WrestleCon.
I mean, we saw a buddy of mine when we went to WrestleMania New Orleans, WrestleMania 30. We were walking through the casino that they have, the Harris, down in New Orleans, and Virgil was standing at the craps, or I think it was craps table, or one of the tables in the casino by himself in his gym shorts. It was super sad. I was like, I just want to go give him a hug.
He's a math teacher as a shoot job.
Well, I mean, he is. I'm not sure if this,
everything he does now. This is all like a gimmick.
Yeah,
it's like a meta gimmick because now he's really he's going to be at All In. They just announced him.
Oh my! Well, they'll bring in Virgil, but they won't bring in Flip Gordon. It's just a travesty of justice. But I think everybody and their mother is booked for All In. I mean, I think next year, if they have it, you're going to try to maybe take the Retro Wrestling Rewind podcast to Starcast. That's Star with 2 R's. They're going to be on Fight TV. Hopefully, they'll have it next year. But yeah, imagine that they booked Virgil. Is he in a match, or if they just booked him for
I think he's just going to be around.
Yeah,
he might be in that Battle Royal thing they're doing.
I think they call it like the not highly produced, but the like over budget Battle Royals.
Over budget Battle
Royal.
I
mean, they have. I mean, if you look at the list of people that are going to be there, like the meet and greets, the eat and greets, the sip and see. I mean, they have every person that's going to be there has some kind of gimmick and some kind of eat and greet, and so it's going to be a. It's going to be a great event. It's going to be this, going to be this week because, of course, it's the episode dropped today.
And I get a percentage off because I'm part of the Honor Club. So I believe I get I think it's half off for me.
Oh, so you're gonna watch All In on coming up Saturday?
I will be watching it.
And I will be watching it. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a great show. I'm not surprised that it sold out in half an hour, but. I mean, what are your thoughts on, kind of to get off tangent of Cody and all the Bucks and their rumors and, speculation that they're going to be signed by WWE after this All In event. Do you see that happening, or do you see them saying?
I sincerely doubt it. I mean, just because right now for them, regardless of how much money the WWE will promise to pay them.
Yeah.
I think for especially Cody, maybe not so much the Young Bucks, for him it's about legacy. It's about impact, the pun, that he's having on the business currently. These guys are making a lot of money without the WWE. Why do you want to work that schedule? Why do you want to work 250 days a year, have no control over what you're doing?
Yeah.
For them, that's going to be a choice. Either you'll take the money and get booked in opening matches, or have a bigger impact on the business with having the ability to potentially make more money promoting and working.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things.
Plus, I think Sinclair's going to pony up to the bar and pay these guys a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, I think
don't forget that Sinclair's a bigger company than WWE. They have more money than them,
which is surprising. But I mean, I don't see Cody going because I'm not a betting man, and it's of course professional wrestling. So why the hell would you want to bet on professional wrestling? I see him beating Nick Aldis for the NWA title. I mean,
I do too.
I mean, it would be awesome because it would be the only father-son duo that's won the NWA title, and it's the one that his father had. I mean, it's the old the old school NWA title, which, you know, before this, who the hell was thinking about the NWA? Nobody. But
Other
now,
than me?
yeah, I mean, well, current NWA. I mean, old school NWA.
I was, it's funny. I predicted, if you go back on YouTube, Retro Wrestling Games Presents, you find the show where I talk about this. Everything that's going on, I predicted.
Oh my God, you are like I
predicted that they weren't going to have NWA shows for like the first year and a half. I predicted that they were going to piggyback on other promotion shows, would it be CZW or Ring of Honor. Predicted that. And I predicted that we were going to have a match with Wes Briscoe taking on Cody Rhodes for the NWA World title at a big event somewhere. Ended up being Nick Aldis, but there's still time to do a Wes Briscoe, again, son of, Jerry Briscoe, part of the Briscoe family and the Rhodes, and there's legacy there. It's important. There's Von Erichs out there running around too, guys. So let's keep those in mind. Again, when it comes to the NWA, you have to balance today's modern wrestling with the legacy, because that's why you bought that company. It was for the legacy.
Yeah.
You could put on your own show. You don't need to spend whatever he spent on the NWA.
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything.
No.
You spent that money because of its legacy. And then having Cody Rhodes hold that title and defend it against other legacy guys, second generation, third generation guys, what have you, guys who are important in terms of the legacy and history of the NWA, I think that's the right thing to do. And I think people will get behind it. And now they just announced for the 70th anniversary show that they're going to recommission the NWA National Championship. So we're going to see that once again.
Man, I can't wait to see that. I mean, I'm glad the NWA is coming back, but
it'll be in Nashville, by the way. You guys can make it.
Well, I mean, it's probably a lot closer for me than to you, but
that's for sure. But, I know a couple of people. I know some people down in Nashville. My good friend Luke Martin, who will be most likely attending the show. So I'll get pictures and a full report from him.
Yeah, and then we'll have him on the show. Maybe he can give us a recap. But speaking of legacies and man who's going to be on the All In show, Virgil, with the great late Roddy Piper, defeated the $1 Million Man, the $1 Million champion, Ted DiBiase. What were you thinking about this match? Did you see Virgil winning by count out? Did you see him winning, or you just, because they kind of built it up where Virgil was making the $1 Million Man lose, against enhancement talent.
With Scott Casey, by the way.
Yeah, and by count out, and it's just like all those things. Did you see this happening on such a grand stage like WrestleMania?
I think there's a couple of things here that's at work, right? Number one, I think Vince wanted to pretend that we didn't see Virgil wrestle before, but we have. We've seen Virgil wrestle in matches before. That tag team match at Royal Rumble, he totally wrestled Randy Savage. Like, I have it on tape. I've seen it. I think there's also a distinct, the people down in Memphis know Virgil as Soul Train Jones. We've seen him work, and for those of you who actually saw Virgil work back in the day, knew that he couldn't. So for me, looking back at this match, is like, this match has the potential of being awful, no matter how good Ted DiBiase is. Number one, Virgil can't really talk. Nice move putting him with Piper. I was of the opinion, looking at this match, that DiBiase was going to beat Virgil would be gone, and then him and Piper would feud over the $1 Million belt.
Yeah.
That, to me, makes more sense. Not knowing that, number one, Piper gets in the accident. He's on crutches. And they're going to, because this is a big angle, because they were together for so long. So obviously the turn is big. The angle is big. This match means a whole lot. But I just assumed that Ted DiBiase was going to beat him and be on his way. And he's going to fight Piper at SummerSlam instead of getting the match with Virgil for the $1 Million belt at SummerSlam, with Virgil winning.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I'm kind of glad that they didn't put a feud with Virgil. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He seems like a good guy, but it's just
I like his character. I wouldn't pay money
to go
see him wrestle.
I would definitely,
but I would spend money for him to stand next to someone and look cool.
And I would definitely not pay $100 to get my picture taken with him. Thank God you could delete the picture, because he'd probably be like, oh, God. But moving on from this match, we had a match that only lasted 1 minute and 21 seconds. Once again, Jimmy Hart in another gimmick outfit.
This is the Jimmy Hart show.
The Mountie, who always gets his man, defeated Tito Santana. It's just, this match didn't, I don't know, like we were talking earlier.
It was popcorn.
Yeah, it was a popcorn, and nowadays sometimes they have the main event and the semi and the main next to each other. But no, they just had, like you said, this is basically a get up and go to the bathroom match. Actually, didn't really have enough time to go up and go to the bathroom.
No angles attached to this. Yeah. The Mountie is a relatively new character. Another thing you get from watching television is that they actually said who the Mountie was. Like they referenced, like, oh, the Mountie is Jacques Rougeau.
Yeah, Jacques
Rougeau's been gone. He's been gone from the company for about a year, a little bit more than a year. He left after Royal Rumble '90. So he's back, repackaged. Obviously, his brother is injured, so his brother is essentially retired. And he comes back as the Mountie. And another thing about the Mountie character that some people may or may not know, that he was not allowed to go by the Mountie name in Canada because the Mounties of Canada, the Royal Police up there, found it offensive. So if he went by the Mountie name, he would be arrested on impersonating an officer. So when they would go into Canada, he would just be Jacques Rougeau in the same gear, but just Jacques Rougeau.
It basically is impersonating a police officer, but it is wrestling. But we'll move on from that match, which had nothing, but
this is the end of basically, Tito's run here. We come back later on as the El Matador, and that was crappy too. So, but I kind of feel bad for Tito because Tito, a lot of people tend to forget how. He was like the number 2, number 3 babyface in the company, 84, 85 in that era, IC champion, tag team champion on multiple occasions. It's like, and to see him at this point, he's not an old guy by any sense of imagination. No, he's just used up at this point.
He's not. And of course, we'll kind of wrap up this match with a funny comment that the Brain said. He said, "I'm surprised that Tito made it here because, LA is close to the Mexican border." So he always makes those references of his heritage and the move. I think they call it the flying burrito, or that I'm not sure if that was the name. I know that was
Manny Fernandez. Flying burrito, but Jesse would call him Chico Santana.
Oh God, things that you couldn't.
It's funny because he's of Mexican descent, but he's not. He's American.
Yeah, and he's a teacher. Texas. He's a teacher. So he's
a teacher. He's a Spanish teacher.
And I see. But then finally, it is the match that we've been waiting for. The match that we all came to see. Hulk Hogan facing the turncoat, the Iraqi sympathizer, Sergeant Slaughter, in the main event, WrestleMania 7. What were your thoughts on this match going in and what you felt going out of it?
I thought that there was no way in hell that Sergeant Slaughter was going to lose to Hogan. I thought Hulk Hogan was going to lose. Why do you ask that question?
Why?
Because I was 8 years old and a moron.
Well, hey,
I want to tell you 8-year-old logic here.
Uh-oh.
My 8-year-old logic was that Sergeant Slaughter beat the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior beat Hogan. So there's no way in hell that Slaughter is going to lose to Hogan, that Hogan's going to beat him. Plus, Sergeant Slaughter is going to be playing by his own set of rules. And he's going to get disqualified. He's going to get counted out. He's going to cheat. And it's going to be ridiculous. And there was no way in hell that Hogan was going to win. I was so nervous. My mom tells a story that I was sitting there eating my fingernails on the edge of my seat because I was like, I don't think Hogan's going to win.
And what did he do? He won.
He won. Funny. For 1991, you didn't see a whole lot of blood. Hogan bled in this match.
Yeah, it was. You didn't see much blood in the WWF, but
this match was pretty violent. There's a chair shot involved here. There's a lot of things going on, and again, it goes. And I want to talk about this real quickly about Hulk Hogan in general when it comes to the more patriotic aspects of his character that kind of comes and goes. Originally, Hulk Hogan, came in. He's Hulk Hogan. He's the Incredible Hulk Hogan. And Sergeant Slaughter, who to me in 1984 was the number 2 babyface in the company, he's doing the pro USA, the patriotic, gimmick, the whole nine, right? As soon as Slaughter leaves, Hulk Hogan picks up essentially picks up the flag and starts adding that element to that character.
Yeah.
So I'm of the opinion if Slaughter doesn't leave, we don't see that element in Hogan's character. Again, it would come and go. If he's fighting Nikolai Volkov, flag in hand, Made in America, white T-shirt, good to go. If he's fighting Bundy, not so much. And we haven't seen this type of angle in the WWF, a foreign menace, foreign heel angle, in a long time. We haven't really seen it since kind of like the Sheik. So it's been a while. Now, a lot of people at the time when this match and this angle was going on, they were really upset by this because unlike some of the other foreign menaces that were out there prior to this, would it be the Russians or even the Iranians, people felt that this angle was in poor taste because we had troops on the ground over in Iraq, actually Kuwait, at the time, and it was disrespectful to the troops. And even Hogan himself tried to get on USO tours, but was not allowed. So what he did instead, he would visit local army bases when he was on tour. And they really, really ratcheted up the patriotism for this particular show. If you looked at the arena overall, it doesn't look like a WrestleMania. It looks like a Great American Bash.
Yeah.
You know, flags everywhere. And I like the look of that show. I think they did a great job making the LA sports arena look great for television at the time. But to me, it's very, very strange that we haven't seen this aspect of Hogan's character here. He's gotten these promos with very strange verbiage, at least for an 8-year-old at the time. He's talking about Patriot missiles, and he's talking about throwing napalm, and he's talking about, Sergeant Slaughter has Scud missiles. I didn't know what a Scud missile was when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it was really like warfare orientated. And Hogan has the American flag bandana, and they really, really ratcheted that up. Again, they would calm it down after this angle is over. But, Slaughter, again, who came in not as the Iraqi sympathizer, he came in as America's gone soft, and over a period of time, eventually he gets Adnan as the manager. He gets the Sheik-like boots, which was a present for Saddam Hussein. They did that Photoshop picture of Slaughter and Saddam Hussein together, which is ridiculous. General Adnan, by the way, is really Iraqi and was really a childhood friend of Saddam Hussein, by the way.
Well, yeah, which is kind of weird that they did that angle. But, I mean, it's one of those things that, I as a 15-year-old, because it was 1991, I was 15, and I was like you. I was like, there's no way in hell that Hulk Hogan's going to win. But he did, and he I think it was because he ate his vitamins and said his prayers. But I don't know what vitamins.
Those Hulk Hogan vitamins, by the way, I had them as a kid. They didn't taste good.
Yeah. But anyway, that concludes WrestleMania 7. And I think we've kind of agreed that we could tell people what we're going to cover next week. We're going to leave it up to you, the great Alex G. What is the topic next week going to be right here on the Retro Wrestling Rewind?
Well, next week's topic is going to be, I believe we agreed on World Class Championship Wrestling, Parade of Champions.
Yes, we did. World Class Championship Wrestling. If you have not seen WCCW, it's on the network. Just type in WCCW, and it's... I was a big fan of the Texas Wrestling, World Class Championship Wrestling. Bronco Lovitch, the referee, the ring announcer.
Worst referee. He's awful.
Hey,
I don't know who's worse, him or Lord James Blears. I just like them both.
Yeah, well, he's no Tommy Young, but
that's for sure.
Or Teddy Long. But we'll go into our love and hate of referees.
Oh, we didn't talk about the missing segment.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is a bonus segment. Because I forgot about it because you know why? Because it's missing. We'll talk about the missing segment. What is the missing segment that they left out of WrestleMania 7?
So it's funny to me. Historically, the WWE Network versions of these shows are supposed to be the pay-per-view broadcast version. So whatever was seen on pay-per-view at the time was going to be on these shows. Now, me personally, I collect wrestling tapes in general. So I have the Coliseum home video version. I have the Silver Vision version, was the UK distributor. And I have the anthology version. And none of them have the instant replay debate between Paul McGuire, host of, he's basically a football host, football commentator, and George Steinbrenner, the owner of the New York Yankees. they're debating the pros and cons of instant replay. So that's weird to me that this segment is not anywhere. Now, as a kid, I had this. This is one of 3 tapes I had, and I taped this from TV. So I had the pay-per-view version with the intermission and everything in it, and the countdown show. So if you can find it, it's still it's not on YouTube. I think it's on either Vimeo or Daily Motion, and it's Vince McMahon is the moderator. You have Paul McGuire, and you have George Steinbrenner, and they're going back and forth, and they're saying how instant replay could be used in the WWF, and if they had instant replay, that the Ultimate Warrior would still be WWF champion, and they do all these things, and they're trying to see how they can make calls instantaneously, and then we're going to time it. And if they take too long, George Steinbrenner's like, they're fired. We're going to fire them. Mind you, don't forget, George Steinbrenner is banned from baseball at this point. So he is banned from baseball at this point. He's not the best. George Steinbrenner is friends with Bobby Heenan for shoot. Like in real life, they're really close friends. And this segment it's a throwaway segment. It doesn't mean anything. Ends up that the replay officials are the bushwhackers, and the bushwhackers are doing kinds of shenanigans. So it ends up being inconclusive at the end of it. And Vince kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen with instant replay in the future. Back to you, Gorilla. And that's it. I understand why they cut it from the shows, like especially like the videotapes, because there's only a finite amount of space on videotapes. Yeah. So I understand why that segment was cut out, but why did they cut it out on the WWE Network version? That I don't know.
I mean, that's a great debate that we're going to have to maybe find out, hopefully. But
did you like Willie Nelson singing "America Beautiful"?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I mean, he had that really small wrestling belt that he was wearing. It looked like a big belt buckle, but I mean, it was. It's Willie.
I think the celebrities in general for this show. I also think we'll talk about that real quick. I think the celebrities on the show were all right. I mean, I think we've seen better ones in the past. We had Regis Philbin, Alex Trebek, Marlon Maples, George Janbrand,
Donald Trump,
Paul McGuire, Macaulay Culkin's in the front row. Donald Trump's also in the front row. Lou Ferrigno, Chuck Norris, and Henry Winkler are all in the crowd for that day. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not the best in terms of a celebrity, guests on their show. We also got to mention that they had to change announcers because Bobby Heenan had a couple matches, and they had Jim Duggan, who was dressed like Uncle Sam, doing commentary with Gorilla. And I actually thought Jim Duggan did a great job on commentary. I'm surprised we didn't see more of him. And then we also had Lord Alfred Hayes, who I think is, although I like him as an interviewer, I think he's one of the world's worst play-by-play men. He's color guys.
I mean, he is terrible. But Hacksaw, he actually did a good job. I mean, I think he did. But
I'm surprised they didn't use him more.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he's be a better wrestler. I mean, be a better commentator than wrestler. But we'll leave that at that. Hey, if people want to watch your YouTube videos and follow you on social media, how can they? I mean, other than looking at the show notes and clicking on your Twitter handle, how can they find your YouTube page and follow you on Twitter, Instagram, all the social medias?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter. It's going to be RW Games Presents, and that's us on Twitter. And then if you want to find us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button, hit the little bell so you get notified when we upload stuff. And we upload stuff, 2 to 3 times a week. So there's always brand new content up there. You just type in retro wrestling games, and we'll pop right up. So,
wow. I mean, that's how I found you. And not most of your stuff, all your stuff that I've seen has been awesome. It's one of those you kind of go in that YouTube hole where you just keep on watching all your content. It's like you just I watch it, and then by the time I get finished watching it, my work day's over. It's awesome.
Like most of my shows, they go at least an hour in most cases because I'm insane. Well, I mean, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother podcast. But for Alex G, I am David Fine. We will see you back here next week, same time, same place, where we cover World Class Championship Wrestling's Parade of Champions right here on Retro Wrestling Rewind, exclusively on the Beyond the Ropes Radio Network.